I'm sure a lot of my audience has seen the popular meme of a stepsister being comically stuck in a washing machine. Many are probably also aware of the adult star shown in these videos, Emily Willis, and possibly even the tragic downfall handed to her after this virality. Fewer people, though, are aware of the nefarious man responsible for her introduction to adult entertainment, Ruben Andre Garcia, a top employee of the now notorious X-rated company GDP, now known to be responsible for the abuse of hundreds of women that they victimized in its decade-long run, culminating in an international FBI most wanted manhunt for the man behind the operation. Today's story will conclude with Emily in a coma and Garcia sitting in a cell with a 20-year prison sentence, though each of these outcomes were unrelated, but in a way they kind of were. You know what, I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. In this video, we'll be going in depth on the internet's favorite stepsister, and the man who put her on a self-destructive trajectory leading to possibly the most horrific fate one can imagine. But to begin, we'll first have to go back to the 90s. But before we go any further in today's video, I'd like to give a big shout out to my sponsor, Incogni. Did you know that the internet is filled with data brokers that mine for your name, addresses, social media profiles, and even court records and social security numbers? They then take this information and sell it to websites, advertisers, and in some cases, even hackers. If you search your personal information right now, I'm confident that there's going to be at least one or two websites that have it up for the world to see. This is where Incogni comes into place. This service reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests that they remove your personal data, and handles any of their objections. And the best part is, this service is completely automated, so if you get a yearly subscription, they'll continuously look on the web to see if anyone is using your information, and then immediately request to get it taken down until it's nowhere to be found. As a YouTuber, it's important for me to try to get this stuff taken down as much as possible because I'm a public figure. But really, everyone is at risk of having someone taking their personal information off the internet and using it to pose as them for nefarious purposes. There have been plenty of real-world cases where someone will get a bill for something that they never paid for, which crashes their credit score. So if you want to try out Incogni for yourself, I advise you to click the link in the description down below and use the code TheGamer at checkout to get 60% off the annual plan. I guarantee you the peace of mind is well worth the minimal fee they charge. Emily Willis was born Alitzi Banuelos in the country of Argentina on December 29, 1998. She lived there until she was about 7 when her mom met an American man from the Mormon church, who she began dating before moving back to the States with him.
I definitely have daddy issues, but in a good way. Like, I like being told what to do.
It's unclear who Emily's birth father is or if she even knew, as her mother's new last name doesn't match hers. Once married, the family moved to St. George, Utah, a small town near Las Vegas. It was there that the young girl became a Mormon. Early on, things seemed to be going well for Emily, spending time with her new dad hiking and fishing. Despite this normal life, the young girl was hiding something. In 2008, she became intrigued with taboo ideas.
I remember I used to always think about, like, being on camera naked and wanting to live in LA.
While attending middle school in 2011, the 13-year-old met a boy and they began dating. Things became serious fast when she convinced this boyfriend to sneak into her room where they slept together. After this initial experience, the teenager wanted to explore her sexuality, but due to her strict community, Emily wasn't able to. At only 17, the minor graduated high school a year early, having only slept with 2 people, considering herself, quote, a good girl. It was at this point she needed to find a career, as she didn't want to work at a burger place forever. She decided to become a nurse's assistant, but quit soon after. This is when Miss Willis met a much older man and began dating him despite being underage.
So I don't know how old he is, but I would say like 64.
At 18, she moved away from home, and with this independence, felt free to be sexual.
And it was like a really knit group, tight group, and so I was fucking a lot of the guys, and they all knew I was fucking like them, so that was fun.
Needing to support herself, Emily found a job as a door-to-door saleswoman for DirecTV, which forced the teen to step outside of her comfort zone and travel. While in San Diego for work, Emily downloaded a Tinder account and swiped right on a 28-year-old man named Ruben Andre Garcia. The 18-year-old had no idea this man was employed by one of the most notorious adult companies in the world called GDP, working as a recruiter, producer, and actor. The two began dating, and Mr. Garcia told Emily a bit about his job. He worked as the male talent for the popular amateur adult site. After a few dates, Andre asked the 18-year-old a question that would change her life forever.
And he asked me if I wanted to do this amateur side of his, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
At this point in the video, it's crucial to explain what GDP is, since between 2011 and 2019, it was everywhere on the World Wide Web. Although to be clear, I am abbreviating its name for the purpose of this YouTube video. The crazy thing about this website is that the content is no longer available because, as it turns out, the men running it coerced, manipulated, and in some cases, assaulted the women in the uploads, leading to it becoming the biggest adult industry lawsuit of all time. As the court case came out, the story became more and more twisted, detailing Garcia's sadistic methods and lengths he was willing to go with these girls next door. Before Garcia was involved, it all started with a man from New Zealand named Michael Pratt. He started working in the adult industry in 2000, immediately after graduating high school. He launched several websites, some of which are still around today and have a similar feel as GDP. In 2006, he came up with what he thought was an appealing idea. He wanted to film women having sex who normally would never shoot adult content. This would be the woman's one and only time in the space, wanting it to be shot in an amateur casting couch style. His first issue, however, was finding talent since he didn't have a lot of access living between New Zealand and Australia. He needed a larger casting pool, so in 2007 he moved to the US, where he began making this type of content in basic hotel rooms. He had some success with this format, but still struggled to find talent and build out his business. This is when Pratt reached out to his childhood friend Matthew Wolf in 2008 for some new ideas, and by 2011 Wolf agreed to move to the US to be co-owner of the enterprise and his official cameraman. With Wolf's help, they made some changes to their business model, such as creating the fake companies BLL Media and Bubblegum Films to make themselves sound more legitimate, and also never referenced adult content. Their homepage stated, "You will not find these girls on any other website." With updated pages, the new problem was how to find a vast number of women who were willing to shoot adult content for the first and only time. Pratt and Wolf found this to be nearly impossible, since the only women interested were those planning to go into the adult industry fully. This is when a new strategy dawned on them: lie. They would begin telling potential models that the shoot would only be given to a private collector in South America and not uploaded on the internet. You'd think people wouldn't fall for such a claim, but surprisingly it worked better than even the owners could have expected. They focused their search on recruiting 18 to 23-year-old broke college students. They then created ads on Craigslist recruiting models to San Diego, California to film quote-unquote clothed gigs.
And they had a website link that they sent me, and it looked really professional. They had a really great photographer. I was like, oh, okay, awesome.
They promised the women between $1,000 and $6,000 for their work, and never once mentioned filming sexual acts in their ad. A typical post would read, "Hiring good-looking girls for immediate work. We are local to San Diego and can shoot you today or tomorrow. We pay $5,000 cash up front. Work with hot guys your age. Over 200 plus models have shot with us. Speak to them about their experience with us." Once a college-aged female would respond to their ad, they would then quickly offer to fly them out and put them in a hotel, all expenses paid. In doing this, they would take these women away from their friends and family, isolating them in a place they've likely never been to before. What the owners of the website discovered is that once they got the women to fly there and inside the hotel room, they were more likely to agree to film a scene as long as it was under the context that it would never be posted online. With this business model, they began attracting more and more young models, and Pratt and Wolf worried about the possibility of lawsuits once the women saw their video on the web. They needed to find a way to, quote, cover their butts. This is when they wrote up an extremely dense contract that the models had to sign, as well as reading a consent statement into the camera, saying that they were sound of mind and not under the influence of anything, which, as it would turn out, was not the case most of the time. They believed that this would prevent any legal action against them if the women ever complained about their bait and switch and intimidation business tactics. As the two men gained more attention to their website and their income increased, they grew paranoid about the situation. To make it as confusing as possible to track down who owned this operation, they created several shell companies. For example, BLL Media got consulting services through Marrow Media and marketing services through Haste Holdings, which were all owned and managed by Pratt & Wolf. Another example dates back to 2006, when Pratt hired a lawyer named Kevin Holloway to create Clockwork Productions and list the lawyer as the president. However, in 2009, this position was passed to Pratt, who then in 2014 switched it back to Kevin, the lawyer, who conveniently died in 2018 before any legal action could take place, making it seem like Holloway was in charge of the entire business. Yes, it was very confusing, but that was by design. Getting back to the main story at hand, where things start to become extremely dark is in 2013, when the friends hire a new employee, the man Emily Willis would later date, Ruben Andre Garcia. At the start, he was 23 years old and originally hired just to be on-camera talent. It's also interesting to point out that the earliest women to file a complaint occurred the same year they hired Garcia. This may be because the male adult actor convinced the owners of the site to pay him a commission based on the number of women he recruited, and Garcia was willing to get results by any means necessary, which Pratt & Wolf of course supported. All of this degeneracy would eventually lead to a class action lawsuit against GDP in 2019, which we'll go more in-depth on in a bit. For now, all you need to know is that in this eventual court case, the earliest example involved a woman known as Jane Doe 4 in July of 2013. She responded to a Craigslist ad that took her to a website called Bubblegum Casting that showed examples of the company's work, with the women being fully clothed. She then got in contact with Pratt and Garcia, who answered her questions, which is when they revealed that they would be shooting adult content. The woman agreed to film for $2,000 under the premise that it would only be sold in a DVD store in Australia and they wouldn't use her real name. She then flew to San Diego and was taken to a hotel with Pratt, who gave her around 6 alcoholic beverages and had her sign the contract. After having sex, she went to the bathroom, but upon coming back out, they were gone, leaving her only $400. 2 months later, they released the video on the GDP website for the entire world to see. Unfortunately, this would not be the only woman who had this experience with the company, and as I read through the lawsuit, the stories only grew worse as time went on, and these men became more and more emboldened. This is when they began hiring women to claim they had worked for the modeling company and loved their experience, explaining that if they wanted to make some extra money, they could film a sex video that no one would ever know about. These women were personally coached by Pratt on what to say. The men also started using aliases to make their enterprise even more untraceable. Jane Doe number 3 was the first known victim to be entrapped by these female actors. In her situation, she reached out to a company called Begin Modeling and a man named Jonathan, who was really Garcia, and emailed her about the job. It was over the phone she learned it was an adult video, and of course he reassured her that no one would find out. Then she met a man named Ben, who was actually just Pratt, at the hotel, and signed a document that she just skimmed, believing the men were telling her the truth. Just a month later, the video was posted online. As time went on, Pratt, Garcia, and Wolf began to get more aggressive. They would force the models to have intercourse even if they were bleeding and in pain, shouting at them and refusing to let them leave until they had the footage they wanted. In some cases, when the women refused to participate, they would pressure them by claiming that they would have to pay all the expenses back, such as flights, food, and the hotel for, quote, wasting their time.
I might have looked like I wanted to be there because I had been beaten up and threatened and trapped and drugged.
Yeah.
Eventually, one of the women, Jane Doe number 14, filed a takedown notice against her episode. In response, Pratt hired a law firm to file a federal lawsuit against the woman, which intimidated her to back down. In 2014, Garcia reached out to a 17-year-old to take part in a modeling shoot. Garcia then requested that this woman send nude photos of herself, which were taken when she was a minor. The teen arrived in San Diego on her 18th birthday, and they took her out to celebrate, going to clubs and drinking underage. After filming, she agreed to be a reference model and took part in another adult industry shoot. She stopped working for Garcia once she learned her video was online. With these sorts of tactics, they were filming scenes that no other production company in the space could replicate. By 2015, GDP was an established name in the industry, and yet none of the female models they worked with had any knowledge of the site until it was posted there. As these men got away with more and more, their tactics became even crazier somehow. The men would start to dock women's pay due to having cellulite on their legs, scars, being pale, or having bruises. In one case, they paid a model less because she had a tattoo on her back. The woman was too afraid to question this, but in actuality, she had sent them photos of her tattoo beforehand.
The underlying common denominator between myself and all the other victims is that we were insecure. We had an insecurity, and that they pride on it.
It seemed that this pettiness was for no other reason than to be sadistic towards the women. They also consistently refused to allow the women to read the contracts, distracting them, providing weed and alcohol, and pressuring them to sign as quickly as possible. One woman even tried Googling something before Garcia grabbed the papers from her hands and told her where to sign. Beyond this, these contracts were wordy and purposefully confusing. It really was nothing more than a cartoonish caricature of what a wordy legal document would look like. In one instance, according to the lawsuit, a woman claims she was assaulted by Garcia off camera, and when she messaged Pratt after her video was publicly released, the video was sent directly to her mother. In another case, a victim was flown to California but had no idea that it was going to involve an adult video, and when Garcia and Wolf became angry, she agreed, fearing what would happen if she didn't. During filming, the men would keep these women locked in a hotel room with them for hours until they got the footage they wanted. This woman would later file a police report, and when nothing came of it, she started posting under the Craigslist ad to warn other women. Pratt responded by sending her a cease and desist letter and threatened a lawsuit. Pratt became more brazen with his threats when involving a woman studying to become a lawyer. After the video was released, she messaged Pratt, who threatened a restraining order and then posted an article on a gossip site called The Dirty, accusing her of being an illegal Vegas escort. Over 60 emails were also sent to faculty at her law school, giving them access to the video. It seemed at this point these men could essentially get away with anything they wanted, responding to one woman after she asked them to remove the video, LOL, good one. In some cases, Pratt would respond in anger instead. You stupid dumbass whore, I'm not happy. You have it coming for you. You owe my 2 fucking videos. I will cut and kill you, bitch. Watch your family and friends, stupid bitch. You better be here by noon shoot tomorrow or your graveyard. While all of this is horrible, it barely scratches the surface of what these women had to deal with after the videos were released. You see, not only did GDP release these videos onto their websites, but they advertised the content by posting clips on the hub and purposefully leak the personal information of the women online. This allowed the scenes to go viral, with internet trolls reaching out to the women constantly, harassing and threatening them. Along with this, these internet users discovered their addresses, phone numbers, and who their friends and family were to spread the content to them as well.
One of the text messages, the harassing text messages that I received was dirty, nasty slut. You can't make a hoe into a housewife. I'll make sure to send this to your future kids' school so everyone can see how big of a slut their mom is. Go get f***ed. Sure hope you don't have a boyfriend because I'm about to ruin your life with this video.
Beyond that, one woman lost her teaching position, another was kicked out of her sorority, one was blackmailed by a man who wanted sex in exchange for her not to tell her parents, and another nearly was killed by their boyfriend when he discovered about her video that she lied to him about. All of the women described developing severe anxiety, insomnia, eating disorders, depression, and sometimes attempts at ending their lives. All 22 in the class action suit had to undergo therapy and stated that they still struggle with PTSD and internet trolls harassing them to this day.
Something that they put on the internet, they stole something from us that is never going away, even though we legally own the rights to the videos now. It'll always be out there.
So how did it take until 2019 for this case to even start if these practices were happening for at least 5 years by that point? Well, it turns out GDP had become a multi-million-dollar enterprise that would have a dozen people who were incentivized to keep the scheme in operation for financial gain. While the key characters are Pratt, Wolf, and Garcia, beyond that, GDP had multiple employees. Theodore Guy, aka Teddy, worked as a videographer from 2015 to 2017. He also drove the women from the airport to the hotel, as well as lying to them when asked if the videos would be released online. There was also an administrative assistant, attorney, and at least 3 named reference models who purposefully lied to these women. Another component of their operation came from a producer named Kevin Gibson, who had his girlfriend repeatedly harass any of the women who hired attorneys, bringing up their legal bills. By 2018, Pratt & Wolf created over 15 different shell companies, all of which were created in a small, tiny, remote South Pacific country which conveniently had lax laws. With billions of views across dozens of X-rated sites, these individuals felt there was no way they could be stopped, or the police could ever trace the operation back to them. Additionally, their psychological warfare tactics of leaking the girls' information to people close to them often resulted in the women fearing for their safety and not wanting to pursue a case. But eventually, after hundreds of women were caught in this deranged snafu, the tides would turn. Pratt's operation would hit a snag when 4 women who had been victims of GDP joined together and hired an attorney named Brian Holm in 2016. They filed a civil lawsuit in San Diego, and just 1 year later, they were up to a total of 22 women participating in the trial. Making matters worse for Pratt, the judge believed the women's accusations, stating that GDP had engaged in, quote, malice, fraud, or oppression before the trial was even scheduled. Michael Pratt was terrified, texting one of his employees, "As soon as I bankrupt the business, they're f***ed. The case gets held. I mean, nothing I can do. They're trying to put some federal human trafficking case on me." He then sold his house for only $5,000 when it was worth over $1 million, as well as having his employees destroy documents. With renewed confidence, he allowed Garcia to continue their slimy business all the way up to the end of 2019. Despite acting like this would blow over, things were not going well for GDP. Pratt and Garcia refused to provide any insight to the court. But that wasn't the case when they deposed Valerie Moser, who was their administrative assistant. The 37-year-old may have decided to start cooperating when she realized that she was facing life in prison. This is when she revealed text messages from Pratt. In them, he claimed to have money stashed in an offshore bank account, which of course goes against his claim of being bankrupt. Once the trial date was set for June 24, 2019, Pratt realized that he was on a sinking ship and fled the country, leaving behind Wolf and Garcia, who were arrested in October and denied bail. What led to the men's swift arrest had to do with the FBI, who had been keeping tabs on GDP for a while, waiting for an opportunity to take the company down. They raided the headquarters and discovered something truly shocking. Before this, all of the women who had been filmed were always over the age of 18, but it turned out back in 2017, Pratt had coerced a 16-year-old. With all of this evidence and without their masterminding boss, Garcia, Wolf, Guy, and Moser were all on their own, and of course turned on each other. This was anything but a simple case, and things were only going to get nastier. With the added mainstream media spotlight, the 22 Jane Does were cross-examined and thrust into the spotlight as all of these videos came up once again. Even their lawyer, Brian Holm, was harassed by anonymous phone calls, X-rated blogs were created about his wife and young daughter, a private investigator followed him, and fake gay images of himself were created and spread on social media. His car tires were slashed and pizzas were ordered to his house, as well as sending women's underwear to him through Amazon. It was later revealed by the FBI that Pratt, who was still on the run, was behind these initiatives. Further, the madman attempted to communicate with the Jane Does on the trial. All of this would not stop the inevitable, and in January of 2020, the women in the trial were awarded over $24 million total, as well as all their legal fees totaling $8 million to be paid off in full. The women also got the rights to the entire GDP film catalog, which they swiftly removed from the website. A year later, in December of 2020, Garcia finally pled guilty to federal charges of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. He was then sentenced to 20 years in prison, which must have shocked the 30-year-old since the prosecutors only suggested 12 and a half. The next to go down was the cameraman Teddy, who had a shorter sentence and was actually just released after writing the script. Pratt's right-hand man and childhood best friend Wolf pleaded guilty but would not be sentenced until 2 years later in 2024, being given 14 years in prison. Throughout the entire trial, Pratt was on the run, but this wasn't going to last for long. Investigators knew that he had traveled to Tijuana on foot, and then his trail went cold when COVID hit. But a group formed called Operation Phoenix Fury to catch the criminal. This team consisted of ex-military, undercover agents, manhunters, and one teenage girl who spoke 3 languages. Most notable of this group, though, was the lawyer, Brian Holm. The group was tired of not getting results from government agencies and decided to do something about it. They knew that Pratt was likely in Barcelona because he used Ledger, a crypto wallet company which experienced a data leak revealing his real name, but also an alias, Mark Williamson. Additionally, the group had spent years now studying this man and knew he loved 2 things above all else: sex workers and Jordan sneakers. Once the team reached Barcelona, they traced the criminal's footsteps in less than 72 hours, knowing what clubs he went to, where he got his mail, and even where he shopped for sneakers while the FBI hadn't been able to find anything in years. A teenager named Amelia Brooke communicated with women who interacted with Pratt and was able to get them to trust her, allowing them to give the group more information such as a copy of his ID. The team was then able to continue their search for Pratt, as it seemed that he had left the country, which they found out later was to travel to Hong Kong and Cyprus to try to sell the still profitable Girls Do Porn operation. The team passed their findings over to the FBI, and 2 months later, Pratt was put on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list in September of 2022, with an offer of $100,000 for information. 5 days before Christmas that same year, Pratt was finally arrested in Madrid, Spain. He had used the ID discovered by the team at the hotel, which was quickly reported to local authorities and then the FBI.
A New Zealander is being held in Spain tonight, awaiting extradition to the United States to face charges of sex trafficking and producing child sex abuse videos.
Spanish law enforcement quickly reached out to Brian Holm, giving him the greatest holiday surprise he could ask for. His trial is set for September 2025, where he is being charged with 19 felony counts. I don't believe Pratt ever anticipated that the women would band together against him, and that really was what led to his downfall. Interestingly enough, this wouldn't be the only lawsuit to come out of the GDP company. In December of 2020, 40 women filed a lawsuit against the parent company of The Hub, accusing them of knowing about the trafficking since 2009. They also claimed that the site purposefully ignored their request to have their videos taken down. The suit was settled, but the outcome was never made public.
And I emailed for years to get it taken down, and no one listened. And then it just gets reposted with my name. Oh, they just don't even get back to you.
The Hub thought that this was behind them until 2023, when another woman that filmed with GDP filed a federal civil case against them and their owners, Ethical Capital Partners. She alleged that they purposefully promoted the video constantly because they were making so much money off of it. She also claimed that the company threatened her with legal action when she begged them to remove her content. A third lawsuit was filed that same year by the same team in 2020, and this time 62 women accused the company of ignoring their requests. While this lawsuit was ongoing, Emily Willis was just starting her career in the adult entertainment industry. In fact, the court buzz may have helped with her stardom, as she was open about dating Garcia from the very beginning. When asked about her involvement in GDP, Emily shrugged off the encounter, claiming to have known that they were lying but simply didn't mind and wanted to film the adult content anyway.
Did you want the fame? Did you want the money and the independence? Did you want to actually just explore your own sexuality?
I think it was, I just got this rush from doing it, of being in front of a camera.
She also explained that she only dated him for a month and then moved to Las Vegas to start working in more mainstream film companies in 2018 at 19 years of age. From the very beginning, Emily was a natural in front of the camera and wooed directors, leading them to constantly want to book her.
My first week in porn, I think I shot 8 days straight.
With this incredible work ethic, the adult star won Penthouse Pet of the Month, leading her to gain even more notoriety.
We all know the video of the washing machine
me getting stuck.
Are
in
you the
wash.
original?
Yeah.
Miss Willis was the original woman to get stuck in a washing machine, which the internet adored as she received over 100 million views on just that video alone. The adult star realized she had found her niche in being the stepsister and was getting recognition in just her first year of filming. And this was not just inside the adult community. In 2019, she was featured in David Dobrik's vlog. This launched her name into the mainstream media, and other YouTubers flocked to the adult actress to keep the momentum going. Adam22 and Lena the Plug often partied with Emily, resulting in the three of them unsurprisingly hooking up. This attention also resulted in her getting a role in a G-Eazy music video. It was around this time that Emily was frequenting several LA parties where she ran into YouTuber Mike Malak, Logan Paul's best friend. As the story goes, deeply intoxicated Miss Willis wandered up to Mike and used a pickup line to get his attention.
I said I wanted to climb you.
Yes.
Like a f***ing tree. It's like, you're so tall, I want to climb you.
Yes.
And then I think I did climb you.
This worked and the two began dating. She continued to take part in Mike's vlogs, along with starring in a Jake Paul video where she performed a surprise lap dance on one of his friends. Miss Willis even caught the attention of streamer Aiden Ross.
So what do you want me to do about it?
Help her, bro.
Oh,
Pull her out.
Get out of the washing machine.
And like many of these adult stars, she was involved in one of his dating shows. Much of this YouTube attention would fizzle out for the adult star when Mike met Lana Rhoades.
I don't know if she was like super happy about like the timeline and how quick it kind of like took off, and like me and her not like maybe having a chance to cut our thing off and like stop, you know, talking and stuff, and me and Lana would move fast.
This came as a shock to Emily, who viewed her relationship as more serious than just a fling, since Mike would constantly call her to hang out. After committing to Lana, Malak would cut off all contact from Miss Willis, but this would not be the end of their love story. By 2020, Emily felt a little lost and was upset about Mike, so she decided to reach out to an organization that claimed to specialize in self-help. After paying for the course, Emily began to feel weird about the program and did some digging only to realize it was a cult. Unable to find quality help, Emily focused on her job and achieved huge career milestones. In 2021, she even won Female Performer of the Year at the AVNs.
Emily Willis!
Emily soon learned the price of success later that year with what became her largest controversy yet. It all started when a video went viral on Twitter of an anonymous woman having relations with a dog. Well, Gianna Dior, an adult star who recently recovered from being paralyzed from the neck down from a vitamin B shot, as well as Adria Ray, tweeted out that Emily was the woman seen with this canine in the upload. The adult performer was horrified that these women would say this about her, as she had worked with both of them several times in the past. Despite the claims being untrue, their posts went viral, resulting in Emily allegedly losing out on work. Because of this, in October of 2021, Emily filed a $5 million defamation lawsuit against the women, accusing them of ruining her career prospects. These ladies allegedly teamed up against the fellow adult star due to tweets Emily had released which Gianna believed to be about her, which Miss Willis denied. A year later, Adria Ray publicly apologized in exchange for the suit to be dropped against her due to the financial burden it had caused. Ray stated, "I am personally not aware of any actions taken by Emily in reference to any animals involving sexual activity. I have personally apologized for my statements that she was involved." On the other hand, Gianna Dior refused to apologize, continuing to dump money into what seemed to be a futile case. With this mess continuing on, Emily reunited with her ex, Mike Malak, around 2022, appearing in a YouTube video involving KSI and Logan Paul. Mike had ended things with Lana as she had now been pregnant with an NBA player's baby. With Lana out of the way, Emily and Mike started up a relationship again.
I'll just stand over here. No, y'all do your thing. I'll be over here.
This soon fell apart though when Emily decided to reevaluate her destructive life choices. After shooting over 700 adult videos, the woman decided to try and break into mainstream acting, appearing in a comedic skit with comedian Trevor Wallace in 2022. However, she wanted a true Hollywood role and found early success booking a part in a sci-fi thriller called Divinity, starring names such as Bella Thorne and Moises Arias. Emily's big feature involved a drawn-out sex scene that some criticized as boring. The movie received 57% on Rotten Tomatoes and never received a nationwide release, presumably because it was art house slop. Regardless, this was Miss Willis's big break, and she decided then that she would focus all of her attention on Hollywood productions, putting adult movies behind her forever.
I've shot so far a couple of other films, and I'm just working right now. I'm ready to work.
Then later that year, she starred in a music video for Slipknot called Hive Mind. As Emily stepped away from the adult world, she began to question some of her past choices.
There is a peeing fetish.
Is that a real thing?
It is. I no longer partook in it, but
you've experienced that?
After her last recorded interview in 2023, Emily wouldn't be heard from again until 5 months later, when the news broke that she had been checked into a luxury rehab facility called Summit Malibu for a ketamine addiction on January 27, 2024. It would turn out that the adult actress had been taking 5 to 6 grams of the horse tranquilizer every day for a year. While in rehab, her doctors discovered a plethora of health-related issues such as bladder inflammation, depression, anxiety, PTSD, night terrors, and anorexia. By February 3rd, Emily was still refusing to eat, and the nurses came to the conclusion that she needed to go to the hospital, though the patient refused. Just 26 hours later, Emily was tragically discovered unconscious in a room. Miss Willis had gone into cardiac arrest and didn't have a pulse. Once discovered, paramedics worked quickly and performed CPR for 40 minutes and were finally able to get her heart going. However, her brain suffered from a lack of oxygen and she went into a multi-month coma. When the adult model finally woke up, she was unable to move or speak and was left in a semi-conscious state. Her family moved her back to Utah, where they provided round-the-clock care for the 26-year-old. Her mother was devastated with the situation and felt that the rehab facility was at fault since they didn't force Emily to go to the hospital. They filed a lawsuit against the treatment center claiming the following: negligence, abuse of dependent, fraudulent business practices, and professional malpractice. The family argued that the facility should have put a 5150 hold on their daughter so she would be forced to seek medical attention. Had they followed that procedure, Emily might have never gone into a coma. At least this is what the media knew and what is widely circulated on the internet. However, it's not the entire story. I got my hands on the official court case and was able to read about Emily's tragic last years before going to rehab that no one else has bothered to discuss. Besides her ketamine addiction and fragile state, the model had already been diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, and PTSD before rehab. A psychiatrist had prescribed her Lexapro and Effexor to help manage her mental health, but combined with Emily's lifestyle and self-medication, it might have made things worse. Starting in 2022, Emily suffered from bladder incompetence. When she was admitted, she smelled like urine, her face appeared dirty, and her hair was matted. Despite her drug test being negative, she was 16 pounds underweight and suffered from severe tremors, too weak to even brush her hair, and had difficulty walking. While there, a psychiatrist prescribed her Lexapro again, and Emily refused to take part in therapy sessions due to vaginal pain that kept her from sleeping. In 2025, the lawsuit against the rehab facility raged on as Emily was officially diagnosed with locked-in syndrome. This condition is a rare neurological disorder where a person is fully conscious and aware but unable to move or communicate voluntarily except for eye movements. So just to be clear with you, this is a 26-year-old that is fully conscious but unable to move, eat, drink, or communicate besides the blinking of her eyes. An absolutely nightmarish fate after years of sex work, partying, and drug abuse. Emily's family currently struggles to pay for the expensive treatments to keep their daughter alive. So her younger brother Michael set up a GoFundMe which has raised over $114,000. His last update on the site was in 2024, where he explained that the family sat every day with Emily sharing photos and happy memories in the hopes that she may one day recover. While all of this was going on, Mike Malak on May 13th, 2024 would go on a podcast to share his insights.
Emily Willis, bro. Like really, really f***ed up situation, dude. Like honestly, like where I don't know what to do in that scenario.
He would go on to explain how he had helped with the situation by donating and promoting her GoFundMe. While he wanted to be more involved, the YouTuber had been told to stay away due to their perceiving him to be part of the lifestyle that led to her current state. Mike hinted at Emily's past problems and how she had been going in and out of treatment facilities since 2022, but then claimed to not have known she had substance abuse issues.
Because when we did the Sidemen thing, she looked clean.
I never really knew.
He further claimed that he brought adult stars onto his YouTube channel to help them come across as more human, but has changed his content and claims to no longer view pornography because all he could think about is Emily when watching. In conclusion, it's crazy to think that if Garcia hadn't recruited Emily for GDP all those years ago, this story might have turned out a lot differently. The outcomes of each side of this former couple's tale both end in the most tragic way imaginable for very different reasons. While Garcia is trapped in a cage for the next 20 years, Emily receives a much harsher and less deserved outcome of being trapped in her very own mind.